I'm your host, Anna Rocklina, and this is
Jedi Hill.
So in today's discussion, we'll be talking about how it all started for you, the New Atlantis and New Atlantean society, and why we're doing all this. Okay,
Yep.
So go ahead, Jedi. Tell us, how did you come up with this New Atlantis?
Okay, well, the original time I actually came up with it was during a vision quest at 16. I'll spare you some of the torture, just get through it. And basically you went down to water for a week, then they put you in a sweat lodge to dehydrate you, throw you at a lake or river, you're cleansed. Now you can go through the ritual torture of the vision quest, which is where you go into the woods, draw a circle around you so you don't get lost or as a protection. And you pray for a vision for 4 days. I was right at the point of my last breath, thought I was dying, had the vision, saw where humanity's going in the future, saw all the cataclysms and other things that are coming, and New Atlantis was a part of that.
All right, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned cataclysms. Is this why you're doing all this, right? Because
It's a big part, yeah. I mean, besides the corruption and stuff in the government, and we need to build a new system to make the old one obsolete, because, taxation is theft and all that. The government has known about it since the late 40s to early 50s for the pole shift, where the planets change where the magnetic north and south is, and it's also known as a geomagnetic excursion. I have known about it since the 90s myself, and have been preparing for what's coming. So I trained as a Boy Scout, taught wilderness survival, Indian lore. I can survive pretty much anywhere in the world with a pocket knife and a fresh water source.
Yep.
And she's seen some of the crazy stuff I do.
But, so why specifically the New Atlantis as an island, and what is coming?
Okay, well, with the pole shift, the storms and all this climate change, and it's cyclic. It really has nothing to do with humans. It's all about the sun. Currently, the best estimates, official estimates, is the magnetic field is down 9 to 10% strength from where it was in the 1800s. More accurately, we are about 20 to 25% less magnetic strength than what we had before. If you've noticed,
Wow, yes.
during the peak of the day, when you were a kid, the sun used to be yellow and now it's white. That's because the magnetic field's getting weaker and we have less protection from solar storms and things like that. The sun affects everything on this planet, from your heart rhythm, the mitochondria, and your DNA, to the storms and everything else that's going on. You watch, it'll be shortly after a large solar flare, usually about 3 to 4 days, you'll have some type of weird weather around the world after it each time. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get stronger, and it's not a question of if, but when the electric grids go down all the way. Yeah,
so in that situation, when that event happens, the grid will be down. Will the people survive, or will they be?
The most likely estimates, and this is also why your billionaires around the world are building bunkers, and the U.S. government has spent like $21 trillion building underground cities 1 to 2 mile deep underground across the United States. You're looking at 1% of the population will likely survive. So
I know we talked about it many times, but I'm just here to ask questions, but for the public, so they could understand better what are we doing and why we're doing this.
Yep, this is why the AI is coming out. This is why the robotics are being advanced. Like, so much technology has been suppressed the last 100 years. It's insane. And they're finally letting some of it come out because they don't trust you to be a good worker after civilization collapses, and they think the wealthy people think you might take their stuff. So they would rather have robot workers and just let you all die to the floods.
Okay.
Kind of like Noah's time where everything's washed away and reset.
And with the new Atlantean island or islands, what are you planning to achieve during this chaos?
During the chaos, so you understand why the islands come in. And you're going to have what's known as a micronova, which is a really strong solar flare, stronger than the Clarington event, somewhere in a factor of, 100 to 500 times stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It'll wipe out most of the electrical grids on the planet. And after it hits, you have the flash first, and then 1 to 3 days later, you will have the coronal mass ejection from the micronova actually hit the planet, and it will cause the decoupling from the plates of...
The poles?
Well, the poles will shift as it happens. It's supposed to be over towards India. China area will be the North Pole, and Colombia will be the South Pole. Greenland and Antarctica will be back on the equator. That's why Trump is after Greenland now, because he knows it's going to be a strategic location on there. The polar ice caps will melt within a very short period of time. And as the planet rotates 90 to 104 degrees, you're going to have somewhere between 500 to 1,500 foot tidal waves that wrap around the planet and then slosh back the other way.
So the slushing is happening, so there will be floodings and...
Yeah, the East Coast is completely gone. The West Coast is gone. All through the middle of America, your Kansas and all that is going to be under several hundred feet of water.
Okay.
So you either need to be high up in the Appalachians, or you need to be in the Rockies, preferably on the western slopes of the Rockies, in between the Rockies and Sierra Nevadas. Think about Salt Lake City, the Great Salt Lake. That is actually where all the salt water from the last one has coalesced as it's evaporated over time and collected. So all the way up there in Utah doesn't mean you're safe. You're too close to the coast itself, and there's not enough high ground for everybody. It's just the way it is. And with New Atlantis, you're building floating structures using my hip system. And of course, I'm a nerd, so...
You always carry it in your pocket.
I got a couple of them here in my pocket, so you can see the general shape of the blocks. These are what will form the base of the islands to create giant arcs that are a minimum of 1 mile in diameter, enabling them to handle, 1,500 foot, 2,000 wave without flipping over, and we're going to be city surfing.
Yeah, right.
So if we build enough of these islands, instead of 99% of the population disappearing, we might be able to save 15, 20% if we're really lucky. But we have a short time frame to do it. People like Ethical Skeptic and the Sun Weatherman, Ben Davison, will talk about the different timelines. And Isaac Newton quoted 2060. I've heard some people say as early as 2030. That's where you get the UN agenda, the Davos, the WEF, and all that for the 2030, because they want you to be poor, own nothing, and be happy or else.
Oh, good.
Pretty much, yeah. The Malthusian cult with your Bill Gates, and I feel bad for all you that got the jab for that, because it's not a good thing when you actually understand how it works. But back to the New Atlantis, the floating cities, this enables us to build rescue vehicles that float and can handle when the main flooding happens. We can grab survivors, we can load people onto the boats before the major catastrophe, giving us a chance to preserve a much larger portion of humanity.
Versus the 5.1%, right?
Less than 1%,
yes.
Yeah, like even if we only ended up saving 1 billion out of the 8 to 10 billion that's actually here now, that would be a huge improvement over maybe the 10 to 100 million that would potentially survive otherwise to repopulate the planet.
Well, that's...
So that's the ultimate thing, preserve humanity for the next 1,000+ years so we can get into the next cycle without hopefully going all the way back to the Stone Ages. If you want to look into some stuff to research of this happening before, look into the Younger Dryas. This was between 12 and 13,000 years ago. Sea levels rose between 300 to 400 feet in a few-day period, which is like when you think of how much thermal energy it takes to melt the ice caps, or a large portion of the ice caps, within a few days, that's major juice. And the only thing that can do it is the sun.
The sun. The sun. Anything else you would like to add?
Well, in addition to that, it's also to build a free society. Get rid of taxes because the taxation is theft. And build a higher class of people. Those who understand universal law. We, can release all the things that are withheld from the cataclysms before and start bringing humanity up to the next level and start to catch up to our ancestors. So,
just a clarification, when you say high class society, do you mean in terms of the wealth or do you mean spiritual evolution?
I'm talking more mental, spiritual evolution for the quality. Because just because you got money doesn't mean you're evolved.
Not all the time.
No. And granted, yes, the wealthy people have less deviance than a lot of the lower class do, just because they don't have to do anything. They got the money for food. They have their shelter, and they don't have to worry about those day-to-day that, the people that are starving and struggling have to fight with. And you have to realize the average person has, the IQ, 100 IQ has been shifting and changing over time. Half the people are below 100 IQ, and that's just here in America. And 100 IQ now would be equivalent to about an 85 IQ back in the 1980s. So humanity has been dumbing down very quickly to where most people are just base animals and don't have any of their higher mind function at all. You're completely controlled by, they are completely controlled by social media, mainstream media, and aren't capable of critical thinking. So we're looking for those who are more intelligent, who are more capable, more skilled, whether it's with mechanics or computers or whatever the case may be, for inventing, so we can bring together the best and brightest people in the world to build a new society so humanity can thrive the next 1,000 years.
Absolutely. And so how can people connect with you if they're interested to learn more about your project and New Atlantis and New Atlantean Society?
Well, you can go to newatlantisdevelopments.com. That's new, N-E-W, Atlantis, and then developments with an S at the end. You can look up the New Atlantean Society, join for free to gather the people. The link's there. You can also find us here on Facebook and then on X at Alchemist Jedi.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jedi.
Yep, thank y'all. Sign off. We'll have more information soon.